Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In Islam, whenever you set foot for accomplishing something special, we invoke the blessings of the Almighty by uttering this auspicious phrase. Assalamu alaikum, my dear children. Welcome to yet another fascinating lesson of English literature. Your fifth lesson. Well, in the past, we have covered 4 chapters. You already appeared for your periodic test yesterday and you had first 2 chapters in there as syllabus. We have already completed 4 chapters and today we are going to start the 5th lesson. My dear children, it's very important for us to have a secular mindset. We should not discriminate anyone based on religion. So just like we have got priests in Christianity, Pandits in Hinduism, we have got mullahs or Maulvis in Islam. People who go and make a sacred trip to the holy land of Makkah grow their beard. They are called Hajis. You may have seen people keeping long beards in Islam. They are called Hajis. Okay, so it's considered as a mark of respect. And Maulvis or Mullahs are considered as wise men in Islam. So my dear children, without further ado, this particular story, Mullah Naseeruddin, is a story about a very wise man, like Birbal in Akbar's court. He may not be very good looking, but he was very, very wise. At times, when people used to look at Mullah Naseeruddin, they used to be very confused. He used to look like a pauper, a mendicant, a beggar, but he was very wise. Some people used to call him mad. Others used to call him a messenger of God, like a fakir. Okay, so now let me come to the story. I just wanted to give you a little idea about who was Mullah Naseeruddin. Mullah was a Persian and he was very wise. What is this, my dear children? Well, it's a very trivial object called a nail, right? But this nail has a special significance in this particular story. Mullah was growing poorer day by day. His debts, D-E-B-T-S, is pronounced as debts, not debts. His debts were accumulating. His materialistic comforts were disappearing. And that is the time when one of his neighbors took advantage of the situation and bought his house at a very paltry sum of money. Mullah was very happy. The contract was signed, but he got peanuts for the house. Before leaving the property to his shrewd neighbor, there was a wall, a particular wall on which there was a nail like this. Mullah requested the neighbor to have ownership of this particular nail. He said that Naseeruddin's father could not end a mission. The mission was to hammer the nail in the wall. It was hanging half outside. So Mullah said, "This is one of the last memories of my father. Could you allow me ownership of this nail? You can have the rest of the house. It's only a small thing. Can I have ownership of the nail?" So the neighbor thought that he is getting such a big house at such a trivial amount of money. What's there in a nail? But his wife actually scolded him. His wife actually reprimanded and said that, "What's there in the nail? When he has sold us the house, why does he want ownership of a particular wall and a small nail?" But then this neighbor said, "Oh, come on, let him have that nail. We have got the house at a very cheap price. Forget about the nail." So before we get into the story, I have given you a backdrop. Now let's come to some of the important words in the story, my dear children. Characters. We have got 3 characters here. Naseeruddin, who is the mullah, the shrewd neighbor, a very clever guy, and his wife, neighbor's wife. Vocabulary, you will come across some new words. First, being unconventional. Unconventional means different from the normal. For example, conventional form of education is the classroom education, right, children? But we cannot have the classroom right now because of the pandemic. So we are taking classes online. That's called unconventional mode of education, which is not like the normal. That's called unconventional. Debts. I told you about this word right now. When you borrow money from someone and you are not able to pay, that goes on your head as debts. So we should never have debts. Contrite. This is a new word. CONTRITE. Whenever you feel sorry or apologetic for any of your misdeeds, that's called contrite feeling. Upbraided. This is a new word. Upbraided. You will see that when Mullah was repeatedly coming to the house to pray to that nail, the wife upbraided that neighbor, okay, her husband. Upbraided means to scold, reprimand, chided, or rebuked. And the last word is, it describes the nature of the mullah. He was always very peace-loving. He was benign, B-E-N-I-G-N. Benign means kind. Now, without further ado, I have given you a backdrop. Let's come to the mind map. The Mullah Naseeruddin was a local priest in debt. Can I request you to come closer? Local priest who was in debt, right? He lost his materialistic properties because there was a lot of money on his head. The shrewd neighbor buys his house at a very cheap price. Naseeruddin wanted nothing. He only wanted ownership of the nail, and the nail was hanging out of a particular wall like this. The neighbor's wife was very annoyed because she was not certain about why somebody would like to have a nail. Now the story starts. The fun starts. Naseeruddin kept on visiting the house repeatedly. He said, I come here to my house to pray to the nail because that nail is the last memory of my dead father. Slowly and steadily, he started putting his items or belongings on the nail. For example, first time he came and put his turban there. Next time he put a scarf on the nail. The third time that he came, he put a coat on the nail, and the wife was very, very angry. She started scolding her husband, telling, now, do you understand? This person, this mullah, is taking advantage of our kindness. I told you not to allow him to have this nail in our house. You could have taken the house completely. Why have the nail? Now he's coming and exploiting our kindness. Finally, when the mullah came, he brought a bag of cow dung and he hung that cow dung bag on that nail. Just imagine the situation, and you will see it in the photograph. The wife is bizarre with her husband. They called a council meeting because it was going out of control. They called an assembly where there were wise men from the village who joined their hands, and then they said, let's address the situation. Now, in the contract, that's the clause, okay, the paper which you sign, the legal documents while purchasing a house. Nowhere in the contract was it written that the mullah cannot come to the house to worship the nail. It was not written. So he had an advantage. So the wise men in the assembly said that when there was nothing written in the contract, then we don't have any such problems. I mean, he's obliged to come to the house because there's nothing written in the contract that he cannot step in his own house, and he's only using that particular nail. So there should not be a problem. Just imagine how clever this man was. So an assembly entitled his act and said that he can come to the house. Nobody can stop him from coming to the house. The neighbor resold the house to Naseeruddin. This shrewd man, he gave the house back, selling, please take your house back. Okay. And Naseeruddin bought that same house from the neighbor at a higher price. My dear children, brains over beauty. You may not have a very good looking, charming attribute, but it's very important to have brains, my dear children, because somebody who has the capability of thinking smart will be successful. So the lesson that we have from the story is you should always keep your head on the shoulders. Means you should always take judgments and decisions very wisely, like Mullah Naseeruddin. I hope you understood the story. The notes and the question answers will be shared very shortly. Thank you so much, children.